So yeah, we're here with Daniel from Deep Silver. We've just seen a preview of Risen 2, which is about 15-20 minutes, which looks pretty spectacular. So you've taken the character from the first game, but you've stripped him of everything that he has before. What happened? How did he actually meet up again with Patty? Because the last time we saw it, she had just disappeared, Steelbeard had disappeared, and now they're all back together. What happened in the interim?
Yeah, okay, so the story of Risen 2 is actually happening 10 years after Risen 1. And when you start Risen 1, we're starting in the city of Caldera, the last vanguard city of mankind, which is actually under siege by Titan Lords and their minions, the Titans. And when you're starting there, you're starting alone as an Inquisition soldier. And one day, actually, Carlos, the officer there, asks you to look out on the sea with a spyglass, and you're discovering there's a ship is actually attacked by creatures. You know, a big kraken actually wraps around the ship and sinks the ship. And he tells you that we have to do something against those krakens and those monsters out there. And so he also tells you that there might be survivors from the ship, so go downstairs to the beach and just look if there are any survivors. And when you go down to the beach, actually the survivor you find is Patty. And so Patty actually, right before in the game this is very depressive. You just lost the sense of why you're doing all that. And suddenly, of course, with Patty,
Spark.
Yes, the spark is back again. Life makes much more sense again. And so Patty actually tells you that she knows where her father is. He's actually in Tacarigua, a sugar plantation island from the Inquisition. And she also knows that he might know how to kill those creatures. So then you're talking with the Inquisition guys, and you're actually developing a secret kind of mission. You have to infiltrate a pirate faction to get this very special weapon. And Patty is going to make the introduction with her father and make sure that you're getting into his crew.
So are you effectively a double agent then?
Absolutely, yes.
So there will still be things you're doing for the pirates at the same time as you're doing things for the Inquisition?
In the beginning, yes, but actually the whole story arc of the game is of a guy who starts off in Inquisition and in the end is becoming a pirate captain himself. So there is not you don't have the option to play like the Inquisition to the end. Which is also understandable, because when you look at what the Inquisition is doing in the outpost of Tacarigua, having slavery work done, they don't really care about the slaves, what they're doing, and they're very stuck up and posh guys. You don't really stick with those guys. Actually, when you're running over to the pirates, you see that they are actually the type of guys you really want to hang out with. They really love booze. Which is also not really only like the term for alcohol in this game, but also there is even the NPC is called Booze, who is selling the rum there, and he's like the top shot of the pirates, and Steelbeard is his old friend. And when you meet up with them, you decide that maybe the pirate faction is not really only dirty and anarchic, but really they are really lovable people, and so you actually really join up with the pirates in the end.
Okay. Now, with the Inquisition in the last game, there was a sort of ambiguity where at first you think that they are the bad guys, then you have to sort of side with them in order to save the island, and of course obviously overthrow them at the end. Are they still, apart from the slavery obviously, which isn't a great thing anyway, are they still sort of not quite bad and not quite good, or do they have a specific leaning yet?
Actually, I think that's a very interesting topic, which not only applies to the Inquisition, but really that's like the red line through all the Piranha Bytes games. That there is no really a clear black and white in the games. You have a lot of shades of grey, and also, as you saw in Risen 1, for example, and the Inquisition, there are people who are really fine with the Inquisition. They are actually also lovable characters. You really talk with them and you can understand their motivations, and it makes sense from their point of view that they are part of the Inquisition, and it's maybe not even a bad choice for them. The same applies for Risen 2. So we saw like the Governor Di Fuego, who is really a prick actually in the game. However, there are also some characters in the Inquisition which you will meet later on, like Venturo, who will become a companion on your ship later on. You will actually meet him and you will understand that his world actually view, it makes sense that he's paired up with Inquisition, and maybe it's not a bad choice for him after all. But once you have talked with a pirate and got to love the free travel with the ship and the adventures, you don't look back.
Now, the ship. What do you get to do with the ship? Can you pilot the ship? Do you just have a crew? Do you get to pick your own crew? Do you send them out on missions and such? Like, what happens with the ship?
All right, so the ship is a very central element of the game. However, we decided against naval battle and actively piloting the ship. The reason why is that since Sid Meier's Pirates, like there was hundreds of games who did that. We don't think that we could add like a very special feature in terms of sailing simulation or cannoneering or what have you to naval ship battles, because it had to be done like in smaller scales, like in MMOs on very large scales. So it's very hard to add something to that. However, what we can add is like the RPG game experience in terms of living the life of a pirate and not only the life of a pirate on a ship. Yeah. So that's what we're aiming for. And the ship is a very central element because the feedback in Risen 1 from the fans was that you felt very isolated in the game, actually, which was on purpose in the very beginning when you're stranded. That's normal. However, later on, even main story characters popped into the story. You did a few quests and then popped out again. You never heard of them again. And for Risen 2, we wanted to have something like a movable base, and that's exactly what the ship becomes. You're actually going to collect people during your quests. So actually, depending on your story choice, you will have different people on the ship from different factions, even different creatures. And in the very end, you're going to have like a melting pot of creatures there and NPCs to talk to. And you can also do shore leaves with them. So you can pick one of them, and they will accompany you. And in the case of Patty, for example, you have a melee fighter. When you're opting for Venturo, who is from the Inquisition, he's going to have a musket, so he's a ranged fighter. There are also some other special types of characters which we don't want to reveal, but I can spoil a little bit of the game mechanic behind it. So you have like a character who heals you, for example, and you have a character who loves to steal so much that he actually loots the stuff for you. So is he running around looting the stuff for you, and then he gives the stuff back to you. But sometimes he loves the stuff so much that he doesn't give you all the stuff back. So he keeps a little bit for himself.
Is that also almost like a source of income as well, this guy?
Yeah, well, it's like a comfort feature, where you don't have when you're like having a musket and you're shooting like a creature from the very distance, and you don't want to walk there to loot it. You can just this guy is going to take care of that.
The monkey. I was playing the game yesterday downstairs. It was in German. I had no idea what I was doing, and I pushed a button, and a monkey appeared.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, I was controlling this little monkey guy who ran across to a crate. I don't know whether I emptied it or whether I just closed it, but how did that come about?
Well, actually, when you're talking about a pirate game, the first thing is, of course, you want to have piratey skills. You really want to give the player a range of assortment of also mischievous skills in the pirate world, and there are many of those. Dirty trick skills like throwing sand in the eyes of people, attacking them with a trained parrot to annoy them during fight. You can throw coconuts at them and hit them unconscious, and also, of course, you have your own trained monkey. And the monkey is very peculiar because when you're running around, NPCs will react on that. They will say, "Oh, small monkey, you want a cookie?" Then when they see actually that you're running across them in the house, they will actually follow you to say, "Don't really steal, little monkey." And then when they see that you're stealing, they're going to try to kill you. So the monkey is really a very nice mechanic where you just sneak around. On some place actually there is a back window and there's a crate on this back window. You can jump in the windows, go there, steal stuff, go outside again, and then give it to your own player again. So it's like a I would say a remote control mechanic, which actually is also very handy in dungeons. Because in some dungeons you're entering a dungeon, and as always in Piranha Bytes games, you never know what's in there. They're like handcrafted every time, so it's not random generated, but it's really like unique. And also the traps are unique. And sometimes you have to pull a lever, and when you're standing like on one side, and actually you see there is I say monkey-sized hole in the wall, you see like, oh yeah, I have to get out my monkey and crawl in there and pull the lever.
Does it become instinctive? Do you remember that you can send the monkey in? Yeah, because in the first game, I would be standing in a room for ages thinking, how can I get out of here? I can see that there's light through there, and I never think to use the Nautilus spell, but it just makes sense, just shrink and go through. So yeah, that's what I was thinking about, when you mentioned the fact that it could pull levers and things, so you can get out of dungeons with the monkey and things like that.
I think it's also a little bit easier this time because simply of the size. Because the Nautilus, we decided in Risen 1 to, for example, when you have a Nautilus, which is like yay high, you know, you don't make like this hole in the wall. So you actually also make a small hole. Unfortunately, in a very pitch dark dungeon, a small hole like that, you know, in this, you can't see it, right? However, you know, when you have a monkey, the holes are bigger, like it's like the half your body. You can't kneel down and sneak, so you have to have another way to go through, and then you're instantaneously thinking about your monkey, because that's how you do it.
You touched on something about the darkness in the dungeons. Now, that's one of the things that I personally liked about Risen, was at night you couldn't see a thing. If you put on your torch, you had maybe 2 or 3 foot visibility. Whereas if you're playing something like Oblivion or Two Worlds, you put on a torch and it's like you've just switched the sun on. Yeah. Will you still have that realism in Risen 2?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, the folks who are seeing all the screenshots, I know that our diehard fans, they're complaining a little bit because we pick only very sunny screenshots. You know, they're like, oh yeah, you know, well maybe they take a look at the in-game teaser we released like 1 week ago. You know, you can already see that there's going to be, you know, thunderstorms. There's going to be very pitch dark, a burning city there. So no worries, there will be really dark. And gritty atmosphere, you know, mists and fog at the bottom of dungeons. So, yeah, so we're really keeping at that realism and not making it too easy to run around at night.
And what about the difficulty levels? Risen was by far the most difficult RPG I had played at the start. Not so much middle to end, but at the start when you had those sort of the vulture creatures on the beach, and you had a stick. And for the first hour or two playing the game, I was just dying constantly. But it made me want to play the game more because it was just stubbornness. Are we going to see the same sort of levels of difficulty?
I would say that when you choose the highest difficulty level in Risen 2, it's going to be quite similar. However, I think what you're also saying is not only that the game is difficult per se, but especially in the beginning, and that's what we changed in Risen 1 a little bit, in Risen 2 a little bit. So in Risen 1, actually the home game world worked like a funnel. You know, you started with a huge game world, and your choices got narrowed down. Yeah. And for Risen 2, actually, we are now putting the funnel upside down. Yeah. So you're starting in Caldera, which is a very limited location. At the beginning, you will return the Caldera, will open up, so it's going to get bigger. But in the very beginning of the game, it's quite limited. You're going to start there, and the guard, actually, in the fortress, when you want to go down to the beach to rescue Patty, actually, he's not going to let you out if you haven't equipped your sword, for example. So we really made sure that in this very small playground in the beginning in Caldera, we want to make sure that the player really gets how to equip his sword, how to make some basic fight moves. You basically can't really die unless you're really very, very creative in dying. But apart from that, you know, you can't really die in Caldera, which is like the first 20 to 30 minutes. If you're really a core player, hey, you can also rush through like in 10 minutes because you already know how to equip stuff, and so we don't really want to slow down their core players. You know, they can enjoy the game in the pace they really enjoy it. And the beginners, you know, we give them a little bit of a hand, you know, and also like in Tekerigua, as you saw when you start the game, there are people talking about, you know, dangerous areas. They're giving you warnings where you have to go or you shouldn't go unless you're properly geared. So really wanted to make the game really also predictable in a kind of way in the beginning, you know. Later on, actually, you know, we can torture people enough, you know, with surprises and stuff. So the game is, you know, between 40 and 60 hours long, so there is no reason to make the beginning particularly hard, you know. You can ramp up the learning curve later on as well. That's no problem. And the game will require some skill, as you saw in our demo. You know, you really have to have some timing in the blows you're dealing, and the guards, they're really tough in their armor, and you know they really have some good protection, and they are hard to overcome, and you really have to be a little bit creative to fight against them when you don't have proper gear.
Are you going to use the guards as a sort of a game mechanic where, when you're talking about the funnel system, obviously when you're playing the original one with Faranga, you could really go anywhere you wanted right from the start of the game. If you chose to just explore, you could go anywhere. which probably would mean that you would end up places that you shouldn't have been so early on in the game. Is that what the guards are going to also be doing in the new one, where you can't get somewhere?
Yeah, well, there are two types of different limits we put there. We don't put invisible walls in there like any other game. What we put in there is for example, what we call gatekeeper creatures. So when you're running around and you're going through a dungeon, and on the other side is like a particularly hard environment, we put like a very nasty, hairy tomb spider into that dungeon, and everyone who enters the dungeon is either getting running away from the tomb spider or killing it. Absolutely. So when you can kill the tomb spider, you're ready to progress. If not, well, running away is always a strategy in our games. So people don't know that, but it's like, well, sometimes you're not good enough. You're not born as a hero in these games. You want to become a hero. That's the journey is the interesting thing. Not starting off as a hero and becoming a god in the end. It's like starting off with a normal guy and becoming a hero. That's what we want to do. And another thing, by the way, another limitation what we brought into the game is that, or a limiting factor, is that of course we control where the player is with the island structures. So actually, since in Caldera, which can be viewed as an island, but it's actually a coastal region, but you're starting in Caldera and it's very, very easy. We're not going to place any hard monsters in Caldera. Then you're progressing to Tacarigua, which is like very easy to medium difficulty. And then, you're on a shipping crew, and then you're sailing around to different coastal regions. And then you get your own ship, and then the world opens up, and then you're already, through the storyline, through the stuff you got, properly geared to enjoy the whole game world. So, we make sure that when you're facing enemies, that you have a good chance to beat them, either with your very creative, intelligent fighting, or with your proper gear.
Also, in the original game, you couldn't level up as such without visiting a trainer, and you had to spend the skill points as well as money in order to advance your levels. Was that going to work with the islands, so that in order to progress a particular level you have to be in a particular island to see a trainer?
Yes, for very, very special skills, yes. We have of course some trainers who are in multiple islands. So for example, we have different archetypes in the game. You saw like with Largo, you saw this rogue thievery kind of character archetype. He will be able to teach you lockpicking, pickpocketing and all this stuff. There are some other persons in the game world who can do that. There are, for example, also bouncer type guards, or a bouncer in front of a pirate pub. He will teach you defensive skills, protection stuff. So this will also be on multiple locations. However, for example, if you want to max out your skills in terms of firearms, you have to go to Caldera, because you have to see Master Godin, who is actually the inventor of firearms. And you're going to see him, you're going to talk to him, and he's all going to tell you some very, very special high-end skills. So while there are many trainers who offer the same, basically, so you don't have to go through all the time to different islands. For example, when you level up, it's like, oh no, I don't have to go to another island to level up. No, that's not the case. You really have like the basic properties, basic skills will always be available on the island you are currently on. However, if you really want to go over the top, you have to go to someone special, because, hey, after all, he's very important. He's the master of his trade.
You touched on the firearms. I was going to ask how you went from being sword wielding into guns. Then you also mentioned that it's a 10-year gap. So was this, you'd mentioned that the firearms were being invented by somebody. Does this mean that they only exist in this location and is yet to spread out to the rest of the world?
Absolutely, yes. You will see locations where firearms, everywhere where the Inquisition is, there is basically firearms, because it's like, like the Spanish conquistadors, they actually brought their horses, their firearms to America, so to say, or to Middle America to be specific. And so in Risen 2 you will see the same. In some regions where the Inquisition hasn't been part of yet, they are still throwing spears, which is very interesting, yes.
So you've got the firearms and they've got spears.
Yeah.
Excellent. Patty and Steelbeard, how much of a role do they actually play in the game? Are they there from the beginning to the end?
a very big role actually, because Patty is going to be a helmswoman on the ship. So if you want to change to another location, just talk to Patty and she will take you there. And Silbert has also a very important role in the game. Yes.
Do we get to hook up with Patty?
Go into too much details because the story is very important for the players to enjoy themselves. So that's also why we, for example, I showed you in the very end of the demo a very big guy, a very ancient creature, and that's the only thing you're going to see from that creature. We're not going to show it outside of this room. We're not going to show it anywhere else. It's teased a little bit in the very end of the in-game trailer, but the rest really the players have to discover themselves. We don't want to make like one feature trailer for every boss, because then you know all the bosses. There is no surprise. What you really want to have is like the feeling of someone going down with a torch through a pitch black dungeon, and suddenly there is a huge room and you wonder, why is this huge room there? And suddenly like a huge guy there in this huge room and you have to fight him. So
yeah, that was like the first time I saw the Super Mutant Behemoth in Fallout 3. I thought, why am I in this huge domed room? There's no reason. Oh, that's why.
Exactly, yes. So this feeling like, oh yeah, wow, that's really cool. We want really to keep that, even though we have to communicate the game, even though we have to talk about the game all the time. We really want to keep some secrets.
It looks quite far on, but you said it's still a beta. How long are we looking at before the release then?
The release window currently is first half of 2012 for PC, Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. We're also aiming at a simultaneous release.
Excellent. Well, Daniel, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for dropping by. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, very much so. And it's out next year.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Peggy 16. There are always beings endowed with special power, chosen by the gods to determine the fate of the world. An ancient prophecy says on the day they are freed, the age of destruction will begin.
I told my chaps I'd given you a dishonorable discharge due to inappropriate behavior.
Go bother someone who gives a damn.
Saving the world means saving all of it, even the Inquisition and their ways, and not just the parts of it that suit you.
You're on Captain Steelbeard's ship now.
What the hell happened here?
Death is close.